Hello and welcome to Chicanime. My name is Lauren and today it is Valentine's Day. This means nothing except for the fact that I am wearing a lot more pink and hearts than usual, especially because I do have to go to work in 2 hours to make drinks for the next 7. So that's going to be my night. Yay. Anyway, Valentine's Day, I'm ready. This is going to be a Overlord video by Annie News. We're going to talk about how strong Aura is. Last time we talked about Aura and Mare, so I guess today is just Aura. I don't know if there's going to be one that's just about Mare, honestly. I don't know. But today we're talking about the Ranger, and I'm not mad about it. Let's go. Also, just so you know, these episodes, if you're watching this on YouTube, they are coming out earlier on Patreon. Sometimes it's just a day or two. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. So like it depends on what's happening. My schedule is wild. But yes, anyway, they come out early on Patreon, and you also get free full episodes over there on Patreon. There's movies over there. There's various TV shows that are not here on YouTube at all. There's stuff over there on Patreon for $5 a month. So anyway, yeah, that's that plug out of the way. Let's begin finding out how strong Aura is.
Time to answer the second part of the
My
question
Aura
that
is
I
at
posed
like
last video.
12.
How strong is Aura Bellafiora? Well, her
Hey,
build
girl.
is completely different from Mare, in the sense that though she may not be this elite spellcaster, she is a master of guerrilla warfare, and has a variety of monsters and savage beasts under her
Yeah,
command.
she does.
So let's see what exactly went into Aura's build that makes her known as being the renowned trainer with the indomitable will.
I love it.
But first, today's a special occasion because
Yeah, it's
I
Valentine's
think I
Day.
can now officially call myself an anime YouTuber since today's video is sponsored by Crunchyroll. Yeah, you heard that right. I didn't
Good
think
for
I'd ever
him.
get to say it, but you
Dang.
can now use crunchyroll.com/AnnieNews to sign up for a 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium. Not to be confused with the regular version of Crunchyroll that anyone can access. With Crunchyroll Premium, all anime
have
and drama
Crunchyroll
titles they
Premium.
host are fully HD and ad-free. So you can binge
They
your
let
favorite
you
isekai
frickin'
like
watch
Overlord,
it.
The Rising of the Shield Hero, or my current favorite, Isekai Quartet, completely uninterrupted. Not to mention that they're all professionally subtitled as well. And if you ever get bored of watching anime, which I highly doubt, then you can easily switch over
so
and read
much
some
out
highly
there.
popular manga like Attack on Titan or the 7 Deadly Sins. So go
Wow.
ahead and use crunchyroll.com/AnnieNews, link in the description, to get your 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium today. Now, let's get
Do
back
they
to the
still
video.
let you do that?
Aura's
read
class
anime there?
archetype is
That'd
that
be
of a
cool.
cross between a ranger
Manga
and a
there,
beast
sorry.
tamer. Specifically, she has 5 levels in ranger, 5 in shooter, 5 in sniper, 5 in beast tamer, and another 10 in high tamer. The ranger, as a fantasy role-playing game archetype, is actually based on that of Aragorn, one of the main characters from J.R.R. Tolkien's classic The Lord of the Rings series.
That's fun.
You see, before the main events of the
Although I will say that in like D&D games, a lot of the time the ranger, like, it's just not the most fun a lot of the time. Like, you can do some cool stuff. Like, you've got a mix of some magic you can do and some like fighting you can do. But I don't know. I feel like there's like a certain stigma about rangers. It's like, it's like if you can't be a rogue, you be a ranger kind of thing. Which I don't know if that's true. I just know that that's like the vibe I've gotten from a lot of different sources.
Aragorn had been a member of the Dunedain Rangers of Arnor, a secretive group of men who lived in the forest to the north of Middle-earth, and they descended from humans, elves, and half-elves. It's because of this that they had incorporated many aspects of elvish
They live
culture into their
long
own.
time.
It's for this reason also that rangers such as the ones that we see in Overlord or fantasy RPGs tend to inherit many elvish aspects as well, as in they're usually adept with both a sword and a bow, and skilled at surviving off the land by means of hunting, fishing, camping, and so on. Oh, and they also make for excellent trackers and scouts. Dungeons & Dragons developed and popularized this archetype.
You do have
And
to
in the
remember to
addition
do
that
those things,
Maruyama
though.
had
Like, you
evolved-
have to remember to put Hunter's Mark on people. And, like, a lot of the tracking, it's like you have higher rolls when it comes to certain tracking or survivalist skills, but I don't know. Like I said, Ranger is not something that I would probably choose to be ever. I've not played a lot of D&D, to be completely honest, but, like, I've created characters for rogues, paladins, wizards, and sorcerers. Um, as well, and I think a fighter could be fun. So it's like I don't know if I don't want to do like magic stuff, which like that's what my rogue is for, so I don't have to do magic. But like I don't know, I just don't think a ranger would ever be something that I would gravitate to. Maybe I'm just sneaky, you know? Just like I want to stab people in the back. I don't know.
They have various special abilities that can be found in common with the druid class. These include befriending wild animals, recruiting an animal companion to fight in battle, moving through restrictive...
Except for like, okay, like he will say they can recruit an animal companion. A lot of the time though, until like it sucks. Like they're not that great, the animal companions. Like one of the campaigns I'm in right now, our ranger is a beastmaster and has like a bunch of ravens that they can use to do stuff. And I feel like they've come in handy once. And it was just sort of like they were able to, because they can't really communicate with the ranger very much. You can give them simple instructions. So it's like the ravens gave the enemy disadvantage essentially because they were attacking their faces, but they couldn't like actually hurt them. So I don't know. It was just like, okay, disadvantage, great, which is a little helpful. But all of our ACs are really low, so it wasn't that helpful. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's just also my character's annoyance at the ravens coming through there.
Dangerous terrain with ease, tracking others while moving at full speed, easily evading certain magical spells, camouflaging themselves in any area, and limited support, utility, or nature-related spellcasting abilities. They could also choose to specialize in 2 types of fighting, either with one weapon in each hand or through a bow. And they would gain various bonuses depending on which specialization they chose. But out of these ranger aspects that I've mentioned, as far as spellcasting is concerned, it's not been specified that Aura has any of these capabilities.
That's true.
In fact, she actually has 0 magic attack.
Oh, dang!
For this reason, we'll ignore that aspect for now. It would also seem that Maruyama spun the ranger-based beast tamer skills into a different class, so we'll dig deeper into those a little bit later.
Okay.
Now, one of the core features of Yggdrasil that heavily applies to the ranger class was the need to level multiple different classes in order to complete a single build. If you recall, no class in Yggdrasil had a higher level than 15, so players were forced to pick and choose between the ones that they wanted to specialize in until they got to level 100. But that didn't mean that you had to spread yourself thin across unrelated types of classes. No,
that makes sense.
Yggdrasil had many nested class trees, meaning as you progress through the game with a single base 1, more classes related to it would be unlocked, and you could start investing levels towards those. The Ranger was one of these base classes, and every time a new class related to it was unlocked, you could become a more specialized type of Ranger, and you would gain new abilities or features related to the path that you were specializing in. Okay. Now, while most Ranger class capabilities are unknown, we do know that one of its core
everything's unknown
was stealth and stealth detection. This made Aura extremely proficient at tracking, so many of the Ranger-derived classes appear to grant player improvements to both their stealth and stealth detection related skills.
I will just say though, I can do that as a rogue also, and like with high investigation checks, and I've got like certain objects and stuff that give me higher investigation. I've got like my insight is really high, my perception is really high. Right now, my passive perception on my rogue character, if you know, you know. My passive perception is 19. Like, when I'm not paying attention, my passive like, that's pretty good. I don't know. I'm just saying. I think that's the problem that, like D&D specifically has, is that a lot of the ranger specialties can also kind of be done by some certain other classes, and those other classes have more interesting perks. Like if the animals that you got, for instance, for Beast Tamer could be a little bit more helpful, that would be better. So like in Critical Role, Laura Braley does she's a ranger and she's got a bear called Trinket, if you know. And it takes like 95 episodes for Trinket to be useful at 4 hours a pop. It's crazy. It's like he's just there. Like he doesn't do anything. You have to remember him, and then he doesn't do anything. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna stop bashing on Rangers. I'm sorry. I don't actually mean to, especially because I've never played one, and Aragorn is one of the best characters ever, so.
Though, to get the full benefits of these improvements, you'd have to consistently level into classes that built upon the Ranger base class. Otherwise, you'd only be partially skilled at them. This was important because powerful concealment spells and higher level stealthy enemies required more levels in Ranger-related classes to detect. To put it simply, a very specialized rogue or powerful illusionist spellcaster would have to be countered by an equally specialized ranger. And considering what we've talked about so far, it's probably clear that all of Aura's known classes could very well be ranger subclasses. I mean, archery specialty and beast taming are major known functions of the ranger archetype.
It's true.
As for her remaining 70 unknown levels, it
crazy.
could
Everyone's
be that
got
she has a
unknown
few of them
levels.
devoted to certain other classes. But since we don't know anything about them, there's really no point in speculation.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It
She doesn't
may
use
be
them.
that a few of Aura's classes don't improve her stealth detection, but the vast majority of them probably do. And so it's likely she has the stealth capabilities of a nearly level 100 ranger.
Which is kind of
We've
crazy.
actually seen some of this in action. We know for a fact that Aura can see straight through the basic level 3 invisibility spell as if it were nothing. She used it to spot the
That's
Naga
pretty cool.
Ryuvarius, the Serpent of the West, during the events of Season 3 as we see here. She can even see through the level 9 spell Perfect Unknowable, one of Ainz's
that's
most
really
powerful
cool.
stealth spells,
That's
which when
wild.
cast on a target, erases all presences of them, including sight, sound, and smell. That said, her ability to see through it isn't perfect. It only allows her to get a vague idea of the enemy's existence,
Still,
as well as
that's
its approximate location.
Pretty good.
A similar mechanic also applies to
level
her
9
ability
spell?
to track or hide from others. She can nearly erase her own presence, as well as spot even the barest traces of her opponent. And so you would need to be a ranger or thief of a similar level in order to spot her hiding from
That's
you,
pretty
or
crazy.
evade her ability to track you. Of course, her stealth ability isn't outright invisibility, but for how effective
No,
it was,
sneaky.
it might as well be equivalent to the perfect unknowable spell. I mean, she was able to effortlessly shadow Ainz in his disguise as Momo while he was escorting these swords of darkness through the forest of Taub. And the silver adventurer Lucret never even had a chance of spotting her due to the massive level difference between him and Aura.
Yeah.
Now, Aura's levels in Shooter and Sniper are definitely archery-related classes. Or more specifically, given the relatively broad name, it's likely that these classes improve the user's effectiveness with multiple different types of projectile weapons, like crossbows, bows, guns, or whatever. Just look at Shizu Delta. She also has levels in Sniper and her primary weapon is a gun. You might even be able to shoot magic spells or fire a cannon more accurately, but that might be a little bit of a stretch.
Well, I think in like a lot of times, so in like D&D, like a sniper ability lets you ignore cover a lot of the time. So it's like 3/4 cover isn't actually cover, because like cover will give disadvantage for a lot of people who are shooting. But if you have the sniper ability, you can ignore that. And then there's a couple other ones that like you lose attack points, but you gain damage points. So whatever you roll to attack, you subtract 5, but then you gain 10 damage points if you do hit. So like depending on what your dex is, or depending on your other stats, it's like it might be worth it to be like -5 from whatever, because I know I'm going to definitely get at least a 17, and as long, you know, I don't, so those are interesting. Just I find that kind of thing interesting. It's a feat that I've considered taking, the sniper feat.
Knowing that Aura has Shooter and Shizu has Gunner, Sniper probably requires levels in some kind of advanced range classes like these before it actually becomes available. It's a more refined ranged class that would improve the user's ability to hit targets from extremely long distances. If you remember, the guild member Peroncino actually specialized in killing even level 100 players from over 2 kilometers away with
Which is
a
kinda
single
crazy.
powerful shot from his bow. That's not to say that Aura could necessarily do the same.
That's
Her classes
crazy.
and build aren't nearly as specialized towards that as his. But the point is that Sniper truly was a class for sniping enemies over a long distance, not just be a better archer. So there's no doubt that Aura has quite a few archery related abilities, but
I want
there
that so
are
bad.
only a small selection that are made known to us. Out of the few that we are aware of, we have Shadow Piercing Arrow, which restricts her opponent's movements by pinning their shadow in place, Rain
That's
Arrow,
pretty
which fires a
cool.
large quantity of arrows to rain down upon a target, Galactic Shot, whose functionality is unknown but probably involves firing a powerful meteor-like shot with special properties, and then Sky Eye, a long-range observation skill that creates a disembodied eye that allows the user to spy on an area.
Very
Think
scary.
Gaara's eye skill from Naruto. Aura had actually used it to—
Oh, by the way, like I said, it's Valentine's Day. So Jess and I did bubbles earlier when we were filming. So now I still have some bubbles. So if I take a drink, it's because I'm dying a little bit inside because of my cold. It's not a great day. But anyway, apologies. My throat is dead.
watch over Ainz's fight against Shaltir. So if I had to guess, Sky Eye would be the perfect class skill for a sniper, as it lets them scout the enemy's position from a
see
great
what's happening?
distance away,
That's great.
whereas the other three are more for adding variety to the shooter's skill set. Finally,
Variety.
Aura has the 15 combined levels in Beast Tamer and High Tamer, which both grant the ability to tame and train wild animals or magical creatures into servants or pets. She could also buff them with various skills. This class probably required levels in another class, one like Druid or Ranger, that granted the player animal companions, and it expanded this small feature into its own class, improving its capabilities accordingly. It likely expanded the number of creatures that a character could recruit. For contrast, Mare only has 2 high-level dragons, while Aura herself has hundreds of creatures under her control,
Yeah, she
all of whom
does.
populate the 6th floor.
Which is pretty
While the
cool that
majority
there's
of them
that
are
many.
unknown, we know of 2 by name. Fen, of the species known as Fenrir,
So pretty.
and Quadrasil, of the species known as Itzamna.
I
They're
will say too, like in D&D, like you can only, I think you cannot have that many creatures under you, which is like, I think that it would be cooler as a ranger if you could have a whole bunch of them.
also technically a third known creature, though it's a bit of a spoiler, as it's one that she acquires from the New World during an arc that's not yet covered in the anime.
Of course.
So keep an eye out for that one. Anyway, Fenrir were a type of large magical wolf-like creature, named after the son of the Norse god Loki. In
Hi,
Yggdrasil,
Tom.
one of their notable abilities is to maximize their traversal speed over long distances by ignoring movement and terrain penalties.
Oh.
This effectively manifests as the ability to traverse effortlessly across land at will, with the ability to pass through plants and even the ground itself as if it were
Dang.
immaterial, if
That's
it's so
pretty
desired.
cool.
As a result of this, they made for quality mounts and trackers, assuming that you could tame them, that is, since they were also ferocious beasts. Itzamna, on the other hand, were gigantic chameleons with the power to manipulate lightning. They were also extraordinarily fast, primarily as a result of their 6 powerful legs. And
Dang.
just as you'd expect from a
Lightning?
chameleon, they could also camouflage their presence.
That's pretty cool.
But let's get back to Aura. The taming ability itself seems to manifest as intimidating a creature into submission. The Beast Tamer would effectively project a wave of intimidating aura at the target, and the creature becomes so terrified that it can never even think of opposing the Beast Tamer ever again. Imagine it like how Hilma was reacting to Aura at the end of Season 2. Now, how long it takes or how powerful of a foe that it will work on seems to depend on the level of the Beast Tamer. It's also possible that the quantity or total combined power of controlled animals at any one given time might be limited by the strength of the Beast Tamer,
Okay.
though it's very likely that the player could stockpile as many creatures as they wanted. This would come at a cost.
The penguin guy was
Permanent
in there.
allied creatures in Yggdrasil accrued upkeep costs, mainly food in the case of animals and beasts, and
That
we
makes
can see
sense.
this feature across Nazarick. I mean, after all, Aura isn't the only one with servants under her command. Shaltir has her vampire brides and Demiurge has his demon lords. However, neither of those were acquired directly through a class skill of theirs like Aura's Beast Tamer. You
Yeah,
see,
that was
it
a
was a general rule in Yggdrasil
race
that
thing, right?
permanent allied NPC creatures required upkeep, whereas any temporary
Oh.
summons were free. For instance, the majority of these servants of Nazarick, who were not custom-created NPCs
Right,
like the
you
Floor
just
Guardians,
bring 'em.
were known as mercenary vassals, beings created by obtaining a magical contract item that summons a permanent servant under your control, which you can then use to attack other players or defend your guild base. This was how Shaltir's vampire brides and Demiurge's demon lords were acquired. They accrued
Oh.
daily upkeep costs, in addition to requiring a large amount of initial Yggdrasil gold in order to create. But it was still one of the most popular ways of creating a permanent servant. Summon spells, on the other hand, costed mana,
Like
or
Tamagotchis.
used class or race-specific summon skills. Though these skills and spells had usage limits, and only one could be active at a time. So you could either have a single powerful summon or a group of weaker summons at any given time.
I mean,
Now, in contrast to how
might
permanent
be
summons
better.
were limited through gold, these summons were limited by time and quantity, making them temporary. For example, Demiurge's demon lords, which are permanent since they've been summoned through a mercenary vassal, can also be summoned through his class skills, meaning he could summon multiple identical copies of them if he wanted to. The reason why I'm telling you all this is because the Beast Tamer class was like a mix of these two approaches to gaining servants. The
Okay.
beasts were permanent like the mercenary vassals, but they didn't require any gold to upkeep. Instead, it required a specific class or race, like the temporary summon spells, making their limitation being that it took precious levels away from your build and restricted your potential allied creatures to a narrow range of what's likely just animals and magical beasts. It's doubtful that they could acquire entities like plant creatures, fairies, or even elementals. Now, you might be wondering, why bother spending so many levels to create a powerful beast tamer if you could just throw a little bit of extra cash at the problem and get just as good of a powerful magical beast via a mercenary
save that
contract?
cash, baby!
Well, part of it was because a significant portion of the game was tied very heavily to its economy in a hyper-realistic manner. And what I mean by that is that unlike many MMOs, which suffer from inflation as players stockpiled millions of currency, Yggdrasil was filled with what you could call gold sinks. Pretty much everything you did required money, and anything that you could do for free by specializing in some specific class or race could also probably be imitated by spending money. For instance, every spell could be turned into a scroll, which would grant any user, even non-spellcasters, the ability to cast it without the expenditure of mana.
I don't know if in D&D a non-spellcaster can use a scroll. I know that like if you are a spellcaster, you can use scrolls that wouldn't necessarily be part of your level or class build usually. Like you can, I mean, it's harder, the DC is higher, but like it's possible. But I don't think you can give a non-magic person a scroll and have them do it.
Many spells could also be turned into wands or imbued into staffs, and then be casted
like literally the wand that he just showed on screen.
Many spells could also be turned into wands.
It's the exact same wand. I got this for $6 at Hot Topic a long time ago. I'm just saying, I think that is kind of funny. It's there it is. Same wand.
Wands are imbued into staffs, and then be casted multiple times, not just once like with scrolls. Meaning that if you wanted to, you could store an entire army of thousands of creatures into a single wagon filled with scrolls that summon monsters.
That's pretty
Another
crazy.
example is that gear wasn't permanent. You would drop it if you died, and they took damage as it was used. That being said, money was the easiest way to repair or buy new gear. So basically, you could spend your way out of any problem. Therefore, in a way, the Beast Tamer class was also very useful for saving gold, since it let you put the spend that would normally go towards NPC summoning towards something else. Of course, you weren't just getting cheap creatures from the Beast Tamer class. It also granted the user the ability to enhance and buff allied beasts. This comes down to another general feature of Overlord's class balance. Just because you can imitate most capabilities with gold doesn't mean that those capabilities will be at full power. Spells scaled in power both with respect to the skill of the caster and the level of the spell. Spells cast through items would generally be in their weakest form by default. It didn't matter if the person using or making them was an extremely high-level caster. For instance, if Ainz was to cast his signature, Grasp Heart, it'll likely kill an opponent with high resistances, whereas a scroll that contains that same spell probably wouldn't. Similarly, there's no way to truly imitate the full range of capabilities of a Beast Tamer without being a Beast Tamer yourself. And while it's not clear what exactly a Beast Tamer can do to power up their allies, they do have a lot of buffs that they can give. But so far, currently, we know of only one ability that they do have, and that's an unnamed skill that modifies their breath to produce supernatural effects. Put simply, Aura's breath can manipulate the mental state of nearby targets, creating various buff and debuff effects. This could very well be the core class ability of the Beast Tamer, and the primary way in which they enhance their animals. Or it could just be one of many such skills they have. But based on the information that we've been given, it seems to be an at-will ability, with no limit on the number of times it can be used per day.
Which is pretty sick. I love
it. It has a maximum range of about 10 meters, depending on the effect that the user wishes to create, though it can also be massively expanded in combination with other skills. Now, one effect that we know for sure comes from this breath is fear, which causes those afflicted by it to cower from the user, in addition to taking significant penalties to all other actions.
I too can utilize Breath of Fear if I make it very known that I'm sick, and I cough, and then I threaten to breathe on somebody.
Instead, given the description of the breath skill, it can probably inflict other mental status effects, such as panic, charm, confusion, nausea, stunning, or whatever. It might even be able to control the user's mind and make them see or hear things that aren't actually there. But that's not to say that it can't be used to grant buffs either. It can also likely inflict positive mental status effects such as morale boosts. Exactly how powerful these positive and negative status effects are though, aren't quite known. But I could see it being quite OP if this type of skill has a high success rate against similar leveled opponents. It's actually been theorized that Aura uses this skill in Ainz's battle against Shaltir. We know that during the end of the fight, just as Ainz is about to finish Shaltir off, he hesitates. Aura, who had been monitoring the battle the whole time with her Sky Eye skill, notices this, and she uses some kind of ability to briefly distract Shaltir and ensure that Ainz has time to finish her off. Specifically, Aura makes it appear as if some hostile enemy presence was standing beside her, which causes her to glance towards it for a split second.
Oh, that's so sick!
Her breath is the only known mind-affecting ability that Aura has, and since we know its range can be enhanced to extremely long distances, then it's highly plausible that this is exactly what happened here. The only issue here is that Shaltir should normally be immune to mind-affecting abilities. Even Aura herself
but she's already
notes
been
that this is a strange
mind-affected.
paradox. It's possible that, like how Aura can increase the range, she might also have a limited use skill that lets it bypass immunities. A more likely theory though is that immunity in Yggdrasil and the New World means slightly different things. In Yggdrasil, a spell would just fail to have any effect if it was used against a target that was immune. However, in many cases in the New World, it seems that being immune just means that the resulting effect is extremely weak.
Okay, so it's like actual resistance versus like just full on ignores the effect. Cause like, because in D&D, if you've got resistance against something, like you can take half damage essentially. But if you are immune to the effect, which most D&D players aren't immune to like anything, they're immune to very little. So like elves and half elves are immune to, I think, sleep spells, like that kind of thing. They don't fall asleep, but they're resistant to like charm spells, which means that, you know, they have advantage if someone on the saving throw, if someone's trying to charm them. So like there is a slight difference there, say taking some damage versus just ignoring something.
During Ainz's fight with Shaltir, he attempted to restrain her with his spell Hold of Rib, despite the fact that Shaltir was immune to mobility restriction effects. But in both the light novel and the anime, we see that Shaltir was immobilized, at least for a brief moment anyway. Still, nonetheless as a result of his spell. Or take Ainz himself as an example. His emotional suppression is supposed to be a result of his immunity to mental effects, but he can still experience brief flashes of strong emotions, albeit only temporarily. Perhaps a similar effect occurs as a result of Aura's ability. It briefly distracts Shaltir, not enough to actually cause the intended effect, but just enough to allow Ainz a window to finish her off.
Okay.
Anyway, enough about this breath skill. To finish off the Beast Tamer aspect of Aura, these levels could also improve her proficiency with a whip. I mean, back during the circus acts of the early 20th century, the whip was a very stereotypical part of the Lion Tamer. Perhaps because of this, the whip appears to be Aura's main melee weapon. If for some reason fighting from long range with her bow wasn't an option, a whip would allow Aura to make use of her natural agility and evasiveness by striking at an enemy from medium range without allowing them to get close enough to hit her. Now, one final interesting thing about Aura's build is that she has the lowest total stat pool among all the known level 100 NPCs, even lower than Demiurge. The main reason for that is that her magic attack stat is 0, and her MP stat is 15. She's just not a spellcaster. But not only that, the rest of her stats are in the low 80s as well. Even if you ignore the MP and magic attack stats of physical attackers like Albedo, Cocytus, or Sebas, their other stats are mostly in the high 80s or low 90s. Mare's so weak, in fact, that her physical attack at 75 is actually tied with her brother's. He even beats her in physical and magic defense as well. Only her HP, agility, and special are higher, which makes sense as Mare is a magic
hit her,
class,
then you
while
can't
she has
hurt
all
her.
Beast Tamer related skills. The only level 100 NPC who isn't a better physical attacker than her is Demiurge, since the majority of his abilities are dedicated to summoning, buffing, and supporting his allied demons. Knowing this, it's reasonable to theorize that all of Aura's investment in the Beast Tamer classes to recruit and buff powerful bestial servants came at the cost of her own combat prowess, which now seems to be a recurring pattern in Yggdrasil. Those with the abilities that support or enhance others are in fact weak themselves. But yeah, That's everything
Okay,
about Aura
that's
specifically.
interesting.
Normally, I would now wrap things up and give a general summary on how all these things are beneficial to Aura and Nazarick as a whole, but I think I have enough information on that to do a whole separate video. So
Okay,
I promise
great.
that in less than a month, expect a wrap-up video for both Aura and Mare that will conclude their installment in this Overlord series. Now, before I
I have
go,
to see if I
I'd
can
like
find a Mare one then, because like it's not listed. I didn't see it in this immediate playlist, so I'll look
to
for
thank
that.
Crunchyroll
Or
once again
you
for
could
sponsoring
also
this video.
just
Don't forget,
text,
you
send
can
it to
use
me.
Crunchyroll.com
like in the comments.
any news or the link
Tell
in the
me if there
description
exists
to get
somewhere.
a 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium today.
I'm so sorry.
And
I'm like
feel free to let me know in the comments what anime you plan on
talking
watching
for
once
hours.
you're there. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time,
Yes, you do.
ciao!
Ciao. So yeah, anyway, like I said, I'm really sorry. I have been talking for a long time and it is starting to really, really affect the fact that I am sick. Okay, so there is somehow I missed this at the very beginning. I think maybe he put these videos out different and different times. Cause look at this. This is the Mare's power, and then over here is how strong are Mare and Ara. But it's underneath it. So I think, with like looking at the thumbnails, so I think the next one is going to be mostly about Mare, and then we're going to go into Ara. Okay. I somehow like glanced over that at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to blame the fact that I'm sick. So thanks again for watching, and I guess I'll see y'all next time talking more about Mare. Bye.